Hello, I'm Annette Young and welcome to the 51%, a show about women reshaping our world. Coming up. From now until the end of the year, women in France are essentially working for free, with new figures showing that the gender pay gap has actually increased to 16.5% in 2020. And how did we all get so addicted to plastic surgery? I'll be talking shortly to Dr Antonis Kousoulis from the UK Mental Health Foundation on their work, which helped bring about new laws in England that now prevent under-18s from getting Botox injections and lip fillers. And also in the UK, a disturbing new trend of needle spiking where young women are reported to have been drugged with injections in bars and nightclubs. But first, and from this week for the rest of the year, women in France are essentially working for free. That is because men are paid 16.5% more than their female colleagues for doing exactly the same job. Charlie James reports.
At 9:22 a.m. in France Wednesday, French women essentially started working for free. That's thanks to the gender pay gap. According to the latest figures, their male coworkers are paid 16.5% more than them on average, and for the rest of the year, women won't make up the difference. French women have heard the political promises. In 2017, President Emmanuel Macron declared gender equality the grand cause of his first term. But the pay gap in France has actually worsened since, starting earlier and earlier. In 2018, the pay gap started on November 6th, in 2020 on November 4th. And the COVID pandemic has slowed progress toward equality, pushing more and more women from the workforce. France's gender equality minister, Elisabeth Moreno, recently condemned the pay gap in front of the French Senate and has explained on France 24 why the problem is so pervasive.
We still need to fight against sexism, because this very patriarchal society is made for men, by men, for men.
When it comes to European pay gaps, France performs better than Germany, but worse than the European average. French women demanding equal pay for equal work are calling for French presidential candidates to make equality a top issue in next year's elections.
Now, it may be seen as the obsession of wealthier societies, but cosmetic surgery is on the rise right across the globe, even in poorer nations. This as women and girls face increasing pressure from social media platforms such as Instagram and TikTok to look perfect. Here in France, the second highest growth market in cosmetic surgery is now people aged 18 to 34. But the industry is very slowly beginning to come under scrutiny. In England, for instance, under-18s are no longer able to get Botox injections or lip fillers for cosmetic reasons. The new law comes after years of efforts to regulate the non-surgical beauty industry. Joining me now from London is Dr Antonis Kousoulis, the Director of the Mental Health Foundation for England and Wales. Thank you so much for your time, Antonis. You and your organisation lobbied hard for these new laws, but do they go far enough?
Well, it's a start. I think sometimes we have to start from somewhere and ensure that we build enough momentum to then cover everything that we want to cover. But we have to start from somewhere, and these new legislations, at least they protect some of the most vulnerable young people.
There's a lot of pressure being placed on young women, and particularly young girls. For instance, the US website Insider created a TikTok account and set the age at 14 just to test how long it would take before a plastic surgeon's promotional video appeared, and it only took 8 minutes. It's clear Instagram and TikTok are not great for the esteem of young women and girls, but there's also the use of filters or body editing apps that you referred to as well, and they can be incredibly harmful, can't they?
Well, what we noticed in our research is that speaking to practitioners, they've told us that there is a shift now from young people coming to them with photographs of celebrities and saying, I want this nose or something like that, now coming with an edited version of themselves and saying, I want, plastic surgery so that I can look like this. I don't understand why I did not look like this. So really a distorted image of ourselves, which we often call body dysmorphia, and a real dissatisfaction with how we look. And really all that kind of stemming from huge pressures. Our research showed fashion industry, beauty industry were the main perpetrators, predominantly on young women.
Yet it's not just millennials or teenagers, but women aged 50 and above who worry about dealing with gendered ageism, with so many of us now working longer, and who are signing up for plastic surgery. So how do we change cultural attitudes that make so many women subject themselves to such procedures?
Indeed, I think that there's a start. This is why regulation is important, because it starts by placing some limits to predatory advertising, and it places some limits on who can perform these operations. Because there's a big difference to have an operation by a qualified practitioner or on the black market, which I should say is a very real possibility in many parts of the world, not just in the UK. So regulation is important. Then there's a whole cultural shift that we have to start taking quite seriously. Our research shows that body image, psychological pressures about how we look and pursuing plastic surgery are often linked with suicidal thoughts for many people, with real kind of low mood, very high levels of stress. So there's a lot that is at stake. And it's really important to start shifting that conversation and maybe embracing the diversity of the human nature and the human appearance and how we're all quite different in our very unique ways.
So what would be the way to shift those cultural attitudes?
So I would start with protecting the most vulnerable with legislation. So we want everyone who goes to a practitioner for plastic surgery or any kind of non-surgical or surgical procedures to ensure that there's a mental health assessment at the start by a qualified person, a real conversation about the motivation for why people are requesting operations or surgery. Then I think we really need to educate parents in terms of how we talk to children, and how we are talking also about the celebrity culture, and how we refer to bodies and wrinkles and even skin tones and all that. I think what's also really needed is to work with young people, really next to young people, to see what is actually where they are in terms of their emotions, in terms of how they see the world through social media.
Recently, iconic 1990s supermodel Linda Evangelista said she was going to be suing for millions of dollars because she'd become brutally disfigured following a cosmetic body sculpting procedure. A reminder that these procedures can be incredibly risky.
Yes, and I think this is really brave of her to come forward and share her story, because we have seen it in our research. There are a lot of people like her, but not with the same, kind of celebrity status, that have been traumatized, disfigured, and actually traumatized by unsuccessful operations. So I think it really sets a tone for how things can go wrong, and why we actually need to be very careful and actually implement and add some limits to how things are done.
Now, the body positivity movement is certainly starting to gain popularity, although it's more so with young women in wealthier countries, yet it does celebrate all of our physical differences. Do you think this signals a healthy approach and that indeed times are changing?
I think it does. I think it's a very positive sign. We're seeing more and more young people talking about, body positivity. We're seeing sometimes exercise used in a very positive way. Of course, we've seen toxic uses as well, but a lot more positive these days. We've also seen, we at the foundation, we've talked about body kindness. Maybe, not all of us are able to be positive about our bodies, but maybe be kind to ourselves about how we feel about our bodies. That would be a good start. But I think this kind of campaigning and activism coming from young people, this is usually how things start to change. So I'm very optimistic about that.
Antones, it's been great speaking to you. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Now, staying in the UK, where there's a worrying new trend of needle spiking, where young women are reported to have been drugged with injections in bars and nightclubs. Just in September and October alone, there were 56 reports to police in more than 40 university towns and cities across Britain. Ellen Gainsford has the story.
These women are taking to the streets instead of the dance floor. They're calling for nightclubs and pubs to do more to prevent spiking after an uptick in students being drugged by injection. A few months ago, Sarah was out clubbing when she felt a scratch on her hand.
I could just tell when something has happened because my hand why is my hand like this? And it was throbbing. I think immediately I just thought HIV, hepatitis. I just felt physically sick because I was like, that's really in my system.
There were 56 reports of spiking by injection in the UK in September and October. Experts say certain needles are now so thin they can barely be felt, and that ketamine could be the drug of choice. Meanwhile, drink spiking remains an issue. There are 158 confirmed incidents of drinks being drugged in the last couple of months. 20-year-old university student Elizabeth says her friends saved her after she was left unable to move.
My body went floppy, muscles wouldn't work, I couldn't even lift my hand to tell them that I was okay. I deteriorated within 5 minutes, my eyes were rolling back. My friend put me in the recovery position. People around me were saying I was drunk, but I know that it's a different feeling.
People who work in the nighttime economy are calling on the government to clamp down before they lose business.
We need to get real on this now. You know, we need to cut through this red tape, and actually the people that are doing this need to have far, far tougher sentences.
The trend has also been seen in Belgium, where a hashtag, Balance ton bar, or Report Your Bar, has been used by victims to name and shame the establishments where they were spiked. Some students are choosing to boycott clubs, instead hosting sleepovers. They're also calling for tougher checks at the entrance to bars.
And bikini-style uniforms will no longer be mandatory for female beach handball players. It now allows women to wear short, tight pants instead of bikinis. The change in regulations follows a campaign started by the Norwegian national team last July. The team was fined because its players wore improper clothing at the European Championships. That is, wearing shorts to protest against the bikini rule. And that's it for now. You can also connect with us via our Facebook page, that of course being France24.51%, or do send us a tweet at _51%. So until our next show, bye for now.